sure a lot of people thought Lightyear was boring, mediocre, or felt like something they had already seen before, but on the other hand, it wasn't an outright bad movie either. If you're among them, stay tuned and I'll explain why you might have felt that way. Hi, I'm Pat, and in this video I'm gonna take a look at Pixar's Lightyear. The movie is structurally sound and has decent characters, but is a little bit too fast-paced. The premise is interesting, the plot points are, for the most part, easy enough to follow, and there are no major plot holes. So why does the movie feel so underwhelming? To put it simply, the movie lacks heart. The audience can't get invested in any of the characters' relationships, goals, or struggles. Lightyear fails to establish a proper and believable bond between the characters, except for two. Developing relationships takes time the movie is unwilling to spend. For the majority of the time, it just breezes through the plot points. If you look at Alicia and Buzz's relationship, the audience must take it at face value. Their good relationship is established right off the bat, but we never see them having an actual good relationship. Most of it is skipped, anecdotal, or shown in flashbacks that lack emotional impact. Apart from explicitly stating it,
you know, your grandma and I can practically finish each other's sentences.
The movie provides nothing to affirm it. In fact, the opposite is true. We are shown that they don't affiliate with each other at all outside of their professional lives. The same issue applies to Izzy and the rest. There is never a real bonding moment. When they are trapped, it's a plot-driven necessity for them to work together. When they are eating sandwiches, it is also not a bonding moment. Buzz reluctantly shares his anecdote with Mo after Izzy pressures him to do so. Their relationship never truly develops nor improves, especially not to such a level where he'd choose them over anyone else for his crew. That's why the outcome felt forced. There is one exception though. There's a good chance that your favorite or one of your favorite characters was Souces, and there's a reason for that. He wasn't just instrumental to the plot, funny at times and a cute cat. No, the audience witnesses Buzz and Souces develop a genuine relationship, ergo appreciation for each other. At first we see Buzz's disdain for Souces, but as the movie progresses and he starts to see the value and companionship Souces provides, he re-evaluates his opinion of him to the point where he grows to like and cherish him, as does the audience. No other character received that kind of treatment. Izzy was mostly compared to Alicia, but we have no concept of who Alicia is, making her development somewhat pointless. Meanwhile, the other two characters were nothing more than gag reels. In other words, it's difficult to get invested in any of the characters besides Buzz and Souces. Disney possesses another story revolving around hubris, responsibility, and redemption that shares similarities with Lightyear, but it executes everything from character development to relationships better across the board. By comparing these two movies, I can better illustrate my points. Maybe you already know which movie I'm talking about. If not, this is the one. Yes, Iron Man. Let's break it down. An arrogant, obnoxious protagonist? Check.
Always working.
Made a grave mistake? Check.
Who are these people?
They are your loyal customers.
Tries to rectify his mistake? Check.
Effective immediately, I am shutting down the weapons manufacturer division of Stark International.
Obviously, not everything is exactly the same, but the setup and thematic are similar and comparable enough. Here's why it works in Iron Man, but not in Lightyear. We are shown how Tony Stark's negligent attitude toward boring things causes innocent people and eventually Tony himself to suffer greatly. This connection grants his desire to rectify his mistake much needed gravitas.
I don't want a body count to be our only legacy.
Lightyear lacks that connection and weight. Buzz feels responsible even though I'm not sure what he should have or could have done differently when he crashed the shuttle. He was already trying to save everyone, he just couldn't do it. This makes it hard to sympathize with Buzz's desire to fix his perceived mistake.
Everyone's just stuck here because of me.
In Tony's case, it's evident how his unprofessional attitude, irresponsible behavior, and blind faith in the wrong person caused harm, even if it was indirectly.
I was the one who filed the injunction against you.
Another thing I mentioned is character development. Tony's friendship with Yinsen and his subsequent sacrifice are important cornerstones of Tony's character development. The personal connection is what sparks Tony's growth as a person and to do more than just assume responsibility, but to take action and put himself on the line and right his wrongs. In Lightyear, everything feels passive. Buzz is not primarily responsible for, nor concerned about saving the city and its people. Instead, he keeps working on his own selfish goals.
Have one objective. We need to put this crystal in the turnip and get out of here.
So, when he does sacrifice his goals for the sake of the city and its people, it feels hollow and more like another story element crossed off the checklist.
They have lives on that planet. Everyone does. Except for us.
I'll elaborate on how to improve these flaws in the last part. For now, let's move on. One issue that is hard to overlook is the complexity of the movie's plot. While it's not overly complicated, the time traveling might raise some questions that I imagine are a bit difficult to understand or explain to a child. For example, how old Buzz exists. If a child is older, they might notice that if Buzz travels back in time but stops himself from doing so, Buzz creates a grandfather paradox, because the event that prompted him to go in the first place no longer occurs. Now a parent is stuck explaining what the grandfather paradox is and how Buzz is not actually traveling back in time but creating alternate realities branching off of the original one. This conversation might lead a parent down a frustrating rabbit hole most people tend to avoid. The time dilution was okay in my book, but I don't have kids, so I wouldn't actually know. Anyway, the old Buzz didn't work as a twist villain for me either because, as I mentioned before, his obsession with remedying his mistake was unfathomable to me in the first place. Once again, the twist villain felt more like another box that needed to be ticked off rather than a well thought out story element. Also, if old Buzz knew where present Buzz was gonna land, he'd have set up an ambush. That's just a minor plot hole though. Don't think about it too much. I do understand that Lightyear was meant to be a movie that appeals to all age groups, meaning children unfamiliar with the Toy Story franchise as well as the generation that grew up with it. I'd say the intended goal was an even 50-50 split in appeal, but ended up being more of a 25-75 split in favor of the older generation. When it comes to rewriting, I'd say the issues that needed improving the most are providing Buzz with better motivation and character relationships across the board. If the movie began early in the journey, before the shuttle takes off, and we witness a meeting of sorts where the Space Rangers are tasked with protecting the civilians on board so they can fulfill their dreams of starting a new life on another planet,
a new world. Fresh start.
We'd get a better understanding why Buzz is so hellbent on reaching the final destination. The next part is okay. Skip forward to when they have already established a base and show Buzz exploring the base. Imagine if he'd encountered misery, hostility, and the graveyard. The graveyard would symbolize the repercussions of his failure and add the needed weight to his motivation to rectify his mistake. Have him revisit the graveyard after every trip to space and witness it grow. This would increase his skill as time progressed and make the audience more sympathetic to his cause. Regarding character relationships, making the three supporting characters long-term cadets who lack a particular skill or trait would have been better.
So you're rookies.
Oh boy, we'd love to be rookies.
At first, Buzz being unable to identify with them and vice versa, while eventually realizing their similarities and him mentoring them to remedy their flaws would have been cheesy, but would have worked. It would have established a mentor-mentee relationship at least. The movie attempted something like that during the sandwich scene, but it was too brief to get any type of investment out of it. These are the two major things I'd have improved. All in all, I enjoyed this movie a great deal, but I don't think it's that great for a younger audience, which puts a damper on the excitement. Lightyear launched to many controversies and was outright banned in some countries, but Disney stood their ground and chose to stand with its product, deciding against serving the mama. For doing so, the movie received massive backlash on IMDb and other review sites and was review bombed into the ground. The two main reasons for that are homophobia and spite, because Tim Allen did not reprise his role as Buzz Lightyear for this movie.
To infinity and beyond.
These news in turn lowered my expectations of the movie by a large margin. I fully expected an outrageous SJW mess foregoing storytelling for the sake of preaching and pandering, similar to the infamous adaptation of Y: The Last Man, but to my genuine surprise, it never happened. The entire tirade was just massively blown out of proportion, which ended up being a good thing. I went into this movie with low expectations but came out pleasantly surprised. Nevertheless, the movie has a few major flaws that make it unable to place it higher than somewhere in the middle of the Pixar pack. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Please share your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, try another one. And if you'd like to see more, subscribe to the channel. If there's something that you think needs improving on my part, I'd appreciate it if you let me know. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again.